What does it take to tell the world that the person they think they know was never the full story? In America, identity is often debated loudly, yet lived quietly. Behind headlines and red carpets are years of doubt, courage, and private reckoning. Tonight, we're not chasing controversy. We're exploring the human journey behind transition and the moment someone chooses truth over fear. For decades, Caitlyn Jenner was known to America as Bruce Jenner, an Olympic champion who represented strength, discipline, and a very traditional image of masculinity. The gold medal in the 1976 Montreal Olympics became more than a victory. It became a symbol. And yet, behind that symbol was a private struggle few people could see. When Caitlyn publicly came out as a transgender woman in 2015, the moment felt historic, but it was also deeply personal. It wasn't simply a public announcement. It was the culmination of years of internal conflict, reflection, and fear. In the United States, where sports heroes are often placed on pedestals, stepping away from that identity required enormous courage. Reactions were mixed. Support, criticism, political debate, but beneath all of it was a human story. Caitlyn's transition was not about erasing a past, but about aligning the outside with what had long existed within. And perhaps what resonates most is not the controversy, but the reminder that even icons wrestle with authenticity. Before Andreja Pejić publicly transitioned, she was already challenging the fashion industry's understanding of gender. As a young model, she walked both men's and women's runways, her androgynous look blurring lines that the industry had long treated as fixed. In American fashion culture, where image often defines opportunity, that visibility was both groundbreaking and precarious. When Andreja came out as a transgender woman in 2014, the announcement felt less like a reinvention and more like an alignment. She had spoken about knowing her identity from an early age, and transitioning publicly was not about abandoning her past, but about bringing coherence to it. The industry responded with curiosity, support, and at times, skepticism. Yet Andreja continued working, appearing in major campaigns and redefining what mainstream beauty could look like. Her journey reflects something broader than modeling. It illustrates how identity can evolve in public view, and how courage sometimes means allowing others to watch that evolution. In a world that categorizes quickly, Andreja's story invites a slower, more thoughtful understanding of authenticity. Candis Cayne entered American television at a time when transgender representation was almost non-existent in mainstream media. Long before public conversations about gender identity became common, she was building a career as a performer, dancer, and actress, navigating an industry that often struggled to understand difference. When Candis appeared on the primetime drama Dirty Sexy Money in 2007, she became one of the first openly transgender actresses to have a recurring role on network television. The significance of that moment extended beyond entertainment. For many viewers, it was the first time a transgender character was portrayed not as a punchline or a plot twist, but as a fully formed person with complexity and emotional depth. Candis approached her visibility with quiet confidence rather than confrontation. She spoke about identity as something deeply personal, not performative. In American culture, where representation shapes perception, her presence opened doors that had previously seemed closed. Her journey reflects the gradual shift from invisibility to inclusion, a change built not on spectacle, but on steady persistence. For years, Geena Rocero built a successful modeling career in the United States while keeping a deeply personal part of her story private. Born in the Philippines and later relocating to America, she navigated two cultures while quietly carrying the knowledge of her transgender identity. In an industry where image is currency and vulnerability can feel risky, that silence was both protective and heavy. In 2014, Geena publicly came out during a TED Talk, choosing not a tabloid headline but a platform centered on ideas and human rights. The moment was measured and deliberate. She spoke about documentation, legal identity, and the right to self-definition. Her transition had already occurred years earlier. What changed was her willingness to share it openly. In American culture, where personal narrative often shapes advocacy, Geena transformed her visibility into activism. She moved from modeling campaigns to policy discussions, using her voice to expand conversations about dignity and equality. Her story reminds us that authenticity is not always loud. Sometimes, it begins with one calm, steady declaration. Gigi Gorgeous grew up in front of the internet. Long before conversations about gender identity became widely visible in mainstream media, she was documenting her life on YouTube, sharing makeup tutorials, daily routines, and pieces of her personality with millions of viewers. Over time, that openness evolved into something more personal. In 2013, Gigi publicly shared her transition, allowing audiences to witness a journey that was unfolding in real time. Unlike earlier generations of public figures, Gigi's transformation did not happen behind closed doors and then get revealed all at once. It happened in episodes, in uploads, in candid reflections. That level of visibility brought both support and scrutiny. Yet she continued forward, speaking about identity with clarity and vulnerability. In American digital culture, where authenticity is currency but privacy is rare, Gigi's story represents a new kind of public narrative. She did not simply transition. She invited conversation. Her journey highlights how self-discovery, when shared thoughtfully, can foster connection rather than distance. Jenna Talackova's name entered the American conversation not because she sought controversy, but because she entered a beauty pageant and was told she did not belong. In 2012, after qualifying for the Miss Universe Canada competition, Jenna was disqualified when organizers learned she was transgender. What followed was not simply a media story, but a national debate about fairness, identity, and who gets to define womanhood. For Jenna, the issue was personal long before it became political. She had been living as a woman for years, and to her, entering the pageant was an extension of that identity, not a statement. When the disqualification became public, it sparked legal challenges, interviews, and intense public scrutiny. Eventually, the decision was reversed, and she was allowed to compete. What remains significant is not just the policy change that followed, but the emotional reality of standing firm while the world argued about your existence. Jenna's story reflects how one person's quiet insistence on dignity can shift institutional rules and conversations in lasting ways. When Angela Ponce stepped onto the Miss Universe stage in 2018, she carried more than a sash representing Spain. She carried history. As the first openly transgender woman to compete in the global pageant, her presence alone shifted the conversation about beauty, identity, and representation. In the United States, where pageants have long been intertwined with debates about femininity and tradition, Angela's participation resonated far beyond the competition itself. For some, it symbolized progress. For others, it raised complex questions about rules and definitions. But for Angela, the moment was deeply personal. She has spoken about living authentically since a young age, and about the quiet determination it took to pursue her dreams in industries shaped by rigid expectations. Whether people viewed her as a pioneer or simply as a contestant, the image of her walking that stage remains powerful. It was not about winning a crown. It was about being visible, calmly, confidently, in a space that once seemed closed. And visibility, at times, is its own form of victory. When Conchita Wurst won the Eurovision Song Contest in 2014, the moment resonated far beyond Europe. For many American viewers discovering her through viral clips and headlines, she appeared as both an artist and a cultural statement. A glamorous performer with a full beard, challenging conventional ideas of gender presentation on one of the world's largest stages. Conchita, the stage persona created by Austrian singer Thomas Neuwirth, was never simply about shock value. Instead, she became a symbol of self-expression and resilience in the face of criticism. Her victory sparked celebration and backlash alike, revealing how deeply questions of gender identity can divide public opinion. Yet through it all, she maintained composure, emphasizing dignity and artistic freedom rather than confrontation. In a culture that often categorizes quickly, Conchita's presence invited a pause. She reminded audiences that identity can be layered, creative, and intentional. Whether seen as an activist or simply a performer, her story illustrates how art can open space for broader conversations about authenticity and acceptance. Jordan Raskopoulos first gained recognition as a comedian and member of the Australian musical comedy group The Axis of Awesome, known for sharp satire and cultural commentary. For years, audiences laughed at her performances without knowing the personal journey unfolding behind the scenes. In 2013, Jordan publicly came out as transgender, sharing her transition in a way that balanced vulnerability with humor. Comedy, especially in American and Western culture, often serves as both shield and spotlight. Jordan understood that laughter can open doors that serious conversations sometimes cannot. By speaking openly about her experience, she used her platform not to shock, but to humanize. She acknowledged the fear of public reaction while choosing honesty anyway. Her transition did not erase her past performances. Instead, it reframed them within a broader narrative of self-discovery. In a world quick to label, Jordan's story invites patience. It shows how identity can evolve without invalidating what came before. Through humor and reflection, she demonstrated that authenticity and resilience can coexist, even under a public lens. Josie Jay represents a newer generation of transgender visibility, one shaped less by traditional media and more by social platforms, where identity unfolds in real time. Unlike earlier public figures who transitioned quietly before stepping into the spotlight, Josie's journey has largely existed online, where authenticity is expected, but vulnerability can be amplified. Growing up in an era of instant feedback, she has navigated both support and criticism with a composure that reflects maturity beyond her years. For many young Americans, social media is not just entertainment, it is community. By sharing aspects of her transition publicly, Josie offered connection to those who may have felt isolated in their own questions about identity. Her story does not revolve around controversy or spectacle. Instead, it highlights the evolving nature of representation in the digital age. Josie's presence suggests that transition today can include visibility, dialogue, and education all at once. In choosing openness, she contributes to a cultural shift where younger generations encounter gender diversity not as an exception, but as part of everyday life. Laura Jane Grace had already built a devoted following as the frontwoman of the punk rock band Against Me, when she publicly came out as transgender in 2012. In a genre often associated with rebellion and raw honesty, her announcement felt both deeply personal and culturally significant. Punk music has long celebrated nonconformity, yet conversations about gender identity were still evolving within that space. For Laura, the decision to come out was not a publicity move, but a necessary step toward living authentically. She later described years of struggling with gender dysphoria while performing on stages across the country, carrying the tension between public identity and private truth. After her transition, she continued to write and perform, weaving her experiences into her music with the same intensity that defined her earlier work. In American culture, where musicians often become symbols for broader movements, Laura's openness resonated beyond the punk scene. Her story reflects not only courage, but continuity, proof that identity can evolve without erasing the art that came before it. Every journey we've explored tonight reminds us that identity is deeply personal, even when it unfolds in public. Whether you agree, question, or simply reflect, the conversation matters. If this story gave you something to think about, take a moment to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. Let's keep this dialogue thoughtful, respectful, and open, because understanding begins with listening.